Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this year's Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day. I'm delighted to be joined by Dianna Morikawa. She's a great friend of mine, and she has a background in healthcare, and she's been in the cybersecurity and tech industry for over 20 years. And that was how we met in a Facebook group about cybersecurity way back in 2019. And I spotted her profile picture was a picture of a gorgeous husky dog. And I wrote to her and said, "Oh, is that your dog?" And she said, "Yes." And we bonded over our shared love of dogs. And Deanna and I have become really good friends. And recently, as well as being in the cybersecurity and tech industry, she's also worked on immersing herself with merging artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. Welcome, Diana. It's an absolute pleasure to be talking to you today.
Thank you, Lisa, for having me. This is very, appropriate for me, and I really enjoy the topic.
Brilliant. So I'm going to kick off with the first question that I have for you. So could you describe how imposter syndrome has impacted you and your career to date?
Yes, I remember my first day at McAfee, and I walked in and I felt like a fish out of water. I did not feel like I belonged at all because I kind of actually went in initially as a web designer, and I was told that they wanted me to do another role instead, which was business development and working with technology partners. And I felt like I did not belong. I felt that everyone there already had like some sort of experience, some sort of degree in cybersecurity that I was really, really lacking. And so I did what I knew best, which was start digging, start reading, start educating myself. And so that's where my journey began. It was really digging myself into it because I felt like my confidence came from having that knowledge base, because I didn't want to feel like an imposter. I want to feel like I belong. So hence my journey began in that spot.
Absolutely. And I can relate to that as well so much of, walking into organizations and feeling like I completely and utterly just didn't belong there at
Mhm.
all. So how would you say that being a woman in a very male dominated field has affected your experience with imposter syndrome?
I think part of it is a lot of the activities has been very centered around male interest. If you kind of look at the industry overall, I mean, you think about how many conferences were utilizing women as a crowd draw for the conferences, for example, very male focused kind of mentality. And even activities, whiskey tasting, golfing, um, fishing, these are all very male centric, male interest type of activities. And when that happens, it's kind of like I feel like, do I need to get myself into that in order to have the relationship building, even though it's not something that I'm interested in? I feel that that has created almost a sense, a culture or environment of exclusion. I don't think it's done on purpose, obviously, because I feel like the people that are organizing it are the ones that find it to be extremely fun and bonding and everything else. But I don't think they think about other audiences in terms of inclusion.
Absolutely. And it's a big thing that I do a lot of work in as well, especially within the DEIB space,
Hmm.
making sure that activities are as inclusive as possible. And you're so right. There are these, very male dominated interests. And, a lot of women aren't, I know I'm not, excited to do a lot of these things as well. So can you share a specific moment when imposter syndrome hit you hardest? And how did you overcome it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So, can you share a specific moment when imposter syndrome hit you hardest and how did you overcome it?
I thought it was the moment when I was told I wasn't technical enough. And that was a huge blow because I've always been the one in the team that went above and beyond, read all the case studies, read all the white papers, always spoke to the subject matter experts, worked with developers and engineers to really understand the product. I typically am the one that create my own competitive analysis chart to really understand the market, do market research. And that was something that I thought was a bit of a shock. And what I did to overcome it was I start looking into it and start questioning, where did that come from? And what did I do that might give off that impression? So I was put through a session where I was, peppered with questions, technical questions about it, about technology. And it got to the point where the manager ended up having to call a product owner and to inquire whether or not my answers were true or not, or valid or not. And that was something that was really frustrating because at that moment, I realized that I knew things about the product that he didn't. And it was never about my technical ability. It was just a way to bully me in a position that wasn't even technical to begin with. So I feel that the imposter syndrome, for some reason, there are targets, maybe because I am different, maybe because my background, my educational background is different. Maybe you just kind of pick on the oddball in the room. I don't know, but because you're different, I think the challenge is that don't look at it as a negative, but look at it as a position of strength and uniqueness. Especially in the cybersecurity space, because you want diversity. You want people to think different, to think like, how would a hacker do this? Or how would a bad actor do something? You want to be able to have that diverse thinking and background. So I changed my perspective on it from seeing it as a detriment of being unique and different to something as a possible asset in looking at problems and trying to solve them differently.
Absolutely. And that's something that resonates as well with me, but coming from a cybersecurity background. And you're so right. We need those diverse perspectives and those diverse thoughts of, what would a hacker do, and how would we overcome that? And we do need that critical thinking. What role would you say, if any, have mentors played in helping you deal with imposter syndrome throughout your career?
Um, my mentors have always been very supportive. I have a few that I rely on that would always give me very good feedback, positive and negative, give me opportunity for growth, really support me, and really give me a voice of reason. These are people that I've worked with, people that know how I think, how I process information, how I problem solve, and to see my value in this industry. So the mentors I rely on is the positive voices that are supportive in my career versus the ones that I found are the ones that are just nitpicking or trying to make me feel unwanted in this industry. So I feel that when you start identifying who your mentors are, the ones that are truly providing you opportunity for growth, those are the voices that should be screaming the loudest.
Absolutely. And I myself have had some amazing mentors. I've also had some, not so good ones as well. And I've also had to deal with some outright, bullies and abusers. And, yourself I went through a few years ago. So it's really, vital and important that you have, great mentors around you, because to me, they're just like, they're like gold if you can, soak up
Yeah.
their
I mean, there's
expertise.
nothing worse than, being told something really negative and you go back to your mentors. It's like, can you tell me, is this true? Am I missing something? Did I give
Yeah.
off that impression? Or how would I've done something differently? I mean, I kind of do a lot of self assessments already, but working with mentors that really know you and know your intent is really helpful because it gives you the perspective that of truth and honesty to
Yeah.
help you improve. And I think that is invaluable.
Absolutely. Um, how do you balance being confident in your expertise while also staying humble and open to learning? Because see, you're one of the biggest learners that I know. You're always learning new stuff. You're always doing courses. I'm in absolute awe of you and how much you learn and take in. So, yeah, how do you balance being confident in your expertise while staying humble and open to learning?
I think a lot of it comes from my biotech background, where we are taught that if you have a hypothesis or a theory or whatever it may be, have an open mind. As technology changes, more data comes in, more information and awareness or discoveries that come in through the biotech space, that you have to shift and adapt. What we believed was going to be the magic cure for cancer 20 years ago is no longer true 5 years ago. So being open to new information makes you relevant in the industry. And it's the same thing with the cybersecurity industry or even tech industry. Things change at such a rapid pace. And if you think about AI, what it was like 6 months ago is completely different than what it is today. So if you don't adapt and you don't learn, there is no way for you to be relevant in industry. So for me, the same thing applies when people say no one's an expert in cybersecurity. And when people say that they are, that's when you know that it's all ego. And
Yeah,
you always have to put in the time. Read as much as you can. Read about the latest threats, how it was done, not just on the surface, but really dig a little
yeah,
deeper. Find out how they did it. Really get into the mind of the bad actors and the hackers, because once you understand that and the methodologies, it gives you an edge and an advantage to combat that, because you got to know your enemy.
yeah, absolutely. And again, I relate so much to what you said around there's no experts in cybersecurity. And I see that word, to abandon that from people a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that anybody can be an expert in cybersecurity. I think you can specialize in a particular area. So even myself, I am very, very careful to say that I'm absolutely not an expert, but I am a specialist within cyber psychology, social engineering, and
Mhm.
cyber awareness, the human aspects elements of cybersecurity. I
Yeah.
wouldn't profess to be to be an expert in any other facet of cybersecurity at all. Um, so, having worked in healthcare, have you observed imposter syndrome manifesting differently at various organizational levels? Would you say perhaps that C-suite executives are more or less prone to it?
I think it can cross many levels in industry. You kind of focus on where the source of the confidence is. Is it their education? Is there their call to fame could be like, I worked on as a neurologist and I did a quadruple empathy, type of work. So you have to think about what is the source? Is it their last win? Is it their educational background? What is giving them the mentality that they are superior to you and everyone else in the room? And I think in any industry where there's competitiveness and wanting to show expertise and wanting to climb the ladder, there's always going to be that toxic alpha persona that is trying to establish themselves. So, whether it's going to be for more money, for better titles, or whatever it may be, I think that it's not industry specific at all. I think a lot of it could be cultural and personal in terms of having certain people in the industry. But then again, you can't forget the fact that a lot of doctors do have the God complex, and that
Yeah,
will create even more of a oppressive environment for others that don't see themselves as gods and see themselves as a healthcare provider, someone that's going to be helping others. Because let's be honest, people that have the God complex are not looking to help others.
absolutely. And coming on to a really interesting thing, which is the advent of AI and automation, because AI seems to be absolutely everywhere. And like it or not, it is here and it's here to stay. So, do you think that AI and automation will amplify or reduce imposter syndrome in the workforce?
I am hoping, based on my research and education, that by having the awareness of trying to remove biases, that the output from the humans are going to have an equal playing field, and
Mm,
that people will be looked at by their actual knowledge and their work, as opposed to their gender, their race, or anything that's cosmetic that might have hindered them in their career. So I feel like it's almost a way of masking any type of way that people can utilize to make you an other, in a category. So hopefully, if utilizing AI correctly and identifying and removing biases, that it would be something that's going to be helpful.
Absolutely. I actually talk a lot around bias in AI.
Mhm.
I think whatever it's putting out there is only a result of what it's fed in. So I always come at it from the point of view of this bias in, bias out.
Yes.
It's inheriting our biases, what we think. And I hope that with a lot more to training and so on for different AI models, that, like you say, it will be used to perhaps eliminate and minimize a lot of those biases. How do you handle feedback and criticism without letting it feed into imposter syndrome?
I think looking at the source is really important. Really understanding why did that person make you feel a certain way, number one. Is it their own personal insecurity? Is it because they're just targeting you because you have something that they want, or they perceive you as a possible threat? So those are the things that I automatically think of, as well as how do I how do I remove that one thing that's being targeted? For example, if I was told that one of my things is lack of eye contact, and work in an industry where you do have a lot of diverse people from different backgrounds and different cultures, some people view eye contact as a negative, as something that is
Yeah,
hostile, something that is challenging in particular. So you have to pivot with every culture sometimes, and you don't want to assume that that's something that they want or do not want. So a lot of mirroring comes into play. But I feel that with imposter syndrome in particular, is really understanding that it may not be you. It could be someone else's insecurities or someone else's goals that's creating the environment. Or maybe they just grew up in a very competitive household, for example, or culture that makes them feel the need to oppress others and make them feel inferior, because sometimes it's just a mind game in order to make people feel that they're not good enough, or they should eliminate themselves from that role so that other people can have it. So those are things that I think about, and just having that clarity and knowing that you may not be at fault and no one's perfect, and you cannot recreate yourself every single time and cater to every person with every interaction, and know your true self as well and your value.
absolutely. And oh my goodness, do I relate to the lack of eye contact? So, as many of you that are probably listening today may know, I'm neurodivergent, diagnosed with autism, ADHD, dyspraxia, and dyscalculia. And I've been told many times, why am I not looking at somebody and being sort of berated for my lack of eye contact, when actually that is so painful for me to do. I mean, physically painful to maintain that longevity, that long level of eye contact. So I absolutely relate to
Yeah.
that. Um, Dianna, you've achieved significant career growth. Does imposter syndrome decrease with success, do you think, or does it just change form?
I see it as an opportunity for me to push myself. I see it as an opportunity for me to remove the barriers, and the reasons why I feel the imposter syndrome is like, if I think about it, for me, the source of it was the lack of education, a piece of paper that says I have a degree in cybersecurity or I have this certificate. That's one of the reasons why I push myself in terms of education and getting all the knowledge base that I can, whether it's going to be through certificates or courses or whatever it may be, or just reading blogs. I feel that if that is what my source of insecurity is with regards to creating that imposter syndrome of not feeling like I belong or have a seat at the table or there's nothing I could contribute, that's something that I can manage, and that's something that I can eliminate. So I feel that if someone feels that, I don't belong in cyber, or I don't belong in healthcare, well, why is that? What is stopping you from feeling like you belong, or you have something to contribute? Focus on areas, for me, is bringing in the ability to problem solve and being able to track things in terms of from a disease all the way back down to a source of the disease. Or it could be following the data, and or following an identities, or following any type of breaches. If you follow back to the source, you can identify where the problem is. And that in combination with being able to research are two of the things that I feel are my superpowers that I brought in, that I carried over from my biotech days, that makes me unique and valued in the tech industry.
That's so true, and that's again a lot of what I can relate to as well. Of feeling that I don't belong, or I've got no right to be in the cybersecurity industry, and I've got no right to be doing what I do. I really can relate to that. So, how would you advise any team members that you work with who might be experiencing imposter syndrome? How would you perhaps advise them in terms of how to handle it?
It's interesting you asked that. I have this one female friend, and I've been mentoring her. And she came in, she's like, I come from a very different background. I'm interested in going into cybersecurity, but I don't feel like I'm good enough. And I talked to her about her interest, her strengths, what can she leverage from her current role to get her into cybersecurity seamlessly, something that she can carry in as a tool or any type of knowledge base. And when she got in, and she actually was feeling othered, so to speak, because she was a minority female in a government role, and she was constantly being ignored, and basically set up meetings that people didn't show up, things like that. So it was very blatant in terms of making her feel like she didn't belong. And I told her, it's like, focus on the prize, focus on where you want to take your career. If something is stopping you from reaching that title that you want, go and get that certificate. Go and do what you need to do. Do not focus on the noise around you, the people that's giving you a hard time, because at the end of the day, what you do matters, and your output will speak for itself, and no one can take that away from you. And she's been in the industry for several years now. She's doing extremely well. And every time I see her on LinkedIn, she has a new certificate. She's growing in her education, and she's growing her tools and her toolbox. And so I couldn't be more proud of her.
Oh, that is such an amazing success story. That's really warmed my heart, because I love to hear of people doing really well and getting into cybersecurity, because we do need as many professionals as possible in the industry. So, Dianna, just to wrap up for our listeners, is there anything else that you would like to share to help those listening today manage their levels of imposter syndrome?
I would say have a little more confidence in yourself. You are unique, and cybersecurity in particular should be as enveloping as possible to all diverse people, because hackers come from all backgrounds, and what you bring to the table could be that insight that's different, that educational background that's different, whatever it is that makes you unique. Don't see it as a hindrance. See it as something that will set you apart from the rest of your team, or gives you an ability to stand out. It's okay to stand out. I know that in this industry, a lot of people want to have the cookie cutter in terms of what you want to see, in terms of someone walking into a room and going through your architect of your network. But at the end of the day, don't let that stop you from growing and going after what you want. If you want that Cecil title, work towards it. Don't let those voices around you, or even the voice inside you, tell you that you're not good enough. And I think we as minority women have already been told throughout our whole lives that we're not good enough. And in a way, it's like some people see it as a way to push you for growth, but in reality, it makes you question who you are and your value and what you have to offer. It does make you push yourself to constantly learn and be better, but in some ways, that little voice in the back of your head is still there. So overcome it, identify what's making you insecure, and squash it.
Absolutely. And again, I relate a lot of what you said here about that sort of not feeling good enough. And I always go with the analogy of fortune favors the bold. And
Yeah.
that was a line that I heard in the film Bohemian Rhapsody, because I'm a huge, huge fan of Queen and Freddie Mercury. And I heard
Yep.
that line in the film. And then ever since then, it's been like, I will ask about that opportunity, or I will ask to get involved in something that I want to be a part of, and I know that I can contribute to. And sure, there's going to be rejection and there's going to be no's and so on. That's fine, next. And you don't know that one thing that you ask about, it could well be a yes. So what's the worst that can happen? So definitely fortune favors the bold.
You will never get what you don't go after.
Totally
And
right. That's a new one. That's a new one. I like that. Yeah, I think that replaces fortune
I
favors
think
the
like
bold.
in the Asian culture in particular, it's basically keep your head down, don't stand out, do your work, and you be recognized for that work.
Mm,
And that doesn't apply very well in the tech industry. You
no.
have to have that voice and you have to speak up. And if you don't do that, you're seen as, just background material. You don't have a voice if you don't make a voice. So I feel that people need to speak up and stick their neck out and go after things, because if you don't, no one's going to be like, hey, that person in the corner, they do great work, let's promote her, or let's give them opportunity for growth. That's not going to happen in this industry. Go after it. Don't be shy.
Exactly.
If you're rejected, find out what caused the rejection and work around it. Make yourself better. Make it impossible for them to reject you tomorrow.
Absolutely. Just to wrap up before we finish this chat, what ways can people get in touch with you if they'd like to reach out and perhaps just share their experiences with imposter syndrome with you, or get involved in some of the great things you're doing, especially in the cybersecurity and AI space?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. So my name is Dianna, last name Morikawa, Morikawa. And you should be able to find me on LinkedIn, or Lisa, if you don't mind providing my hyperlink on that, that'd be
Mhm.
fantastic. And more than happy to work with people, talk to people, or expand networks and find people that want to go after this challenge and not feel so insecure about going after their careers.
Wonderful. Dianna, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you on International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening to us today. We've got more great stuff coming up and more great conversations around imposter syndrome. So do keep following our LinkedIn page and our account on X. And let's keep having the conversation around imposter syndrome. And we'll see you on the next event.
Thank you, Lisa.